Welcome to the weekly Pistol Podcast. At the end of this hour, we want you better than when we started.
All right, what's good? What's good, Veronica?
Yes.
I see you are rocking the Cardinals
yeah.
shit this week.
Every week.
Was it a loss?
Yeah, it was.
Go figure.
It was.
Yeah. I don't Cliff. I don't think Cliff's gonna make the whole season. I really don't think he's gonna make the whole season.
Totally.
No.
It's game 2. Come on, give him a
You're already 2 down. Didn't we lose last week?
we tied last
Oh, we're
week.
1-1. Oh no, it's a
We're
tie.
0-1-1.
Oh,
The
Jesus.
good old Western draw.
Yeah, fuck that. These guys are not gonna do it. Anyways, well, it's good to see you guys back.
Thank God we're not a sports fucking
I know.
cast.
It'd be bad. All right. So I appreciate you guys coming back, watching the podcast. As you see in seat 4, there is Tony. Much better looking than Mark.
I won't say that.
Although it is 100 degrees outside, and you got that fucking thing on your head, and I cannot figure out why you got it on your head.
It never leaves my dome.
It's that granola in you
It is.
rolling around. Okay. So this week, Veronica's been harping me about doing a family piece of the podcast.
Right.
And family for me is a little rough, and, well, I'm a little chicken shit, so I've been putting it off. So I called Veronica, and I asked her if she thought this week's episode would be good about the family piece on how and when we actually tell our families where we're at. The fact that we got diagnosed with PTSD, the fact that it was career ending, and there's a whole, it's like an onion, right?
Yeah, you just
It's like a layer, because you've got your intermediate family, you got your kids, you got your husband, your spouse, and then you've got your next layer out is your mom, your dad, your mother-in-law, your sister-in-law, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, and then you got another outer layer of second cousins, third cousins, friends, families, and friends of friends that don't see you only once a year on New Year's Day. And a year ago you were a cop, a year later you're not. And
yo, man, what happened?
yeah. The funny thing is with that is, for most of us, if we've been in the career long enough, and we just say we retired, nobody questions us.
Right.
You know, you could have 10, 15 years on. They're like, damn, it's 20 already? And you're like, yeah, it was good. I'm done.
Yep.
So, Veronica, yours was kind of interesting because it's not, you just quit, right? Like, you just fucking walked away. There was no time period where you were fighting the city with retirement, work comp. You just said, fuck it, I'm out.
Yeah, I didn't have the fight in me. Like, my battle with workers' comp was so bad, and I knew the city was against me based on, like, you know, my depositions and things I had already been through. I just could not see myself doing another fight. Like, I thought just getting out of there, getting away from it, like, that was the safest thing for me at the time.
All right. So,
In hindsight, don't do that.
yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
So, why don't we start with you?
Okay.
So when you got to that point, when you knew, fuck, I'm out, right? I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the first person that you need to talk to is your spouse.
So,
Or were you married?
I think we were already married. Yeah. But I had been, you know, like, my incident when I met with this psychologist was in August of 2015, and I left the PD. My last day at work was in July of 2016, but I didn't officially quit until September. And so during that time, like, it was obvious that something was wrong with me, right? Like, my husband knew something was just not right. Like, everybody in my home, because I was really good about hiding it from others, but I think I was good at hiding it because I just didn't go anywhere. I went to work and I went home. And then when I was out of work, like, I was gone for, you know, a couple months at a time, a couple weeks at a time. And during that time, I just stayed home. Like, nobody even knew I was gone. And so my husband obviously knew something, and I think he knew it was related to me seeing this lady. So it wasn't anything, like, telling him wasn't something I had to do. He just kind of picked up on it. I didn't tell my kids, though, until I was going to quit. And that was kind of that was like me getting permission to quit, right? Because my girls grew up with me doing this. And so they knew that whole year that something wasn't right. Like, I was just really mean. I was just off my game, right? I went from being able to do everything for them to just coming home and crashing every day, being really mean and nasty for no reason, always being sick. Like, and that's how, for me, that's what people noticed the most at home, was just I was always sick, right? They didn't see me on the bathroom floor crying. They didn't see the depression. They just saw that mom had really bad headaches. Mom was always asleep. Like, she just wasn't well anymore. And so when I decided I just needed to be done, I went to my girls and I just said, hey, so this is what's going on. Like,
what'd you say?
I probably sugarcoated the shit out of it and just said I've been sick because of it. I probably still didn't tell them about the depression, you know what I mean, the suicidal ideology. Like, I didn't share any of that. I just told them that because I had been so sick that I was considering leaving because I didn't think it was going to get any better. It was just making me worse.
Did you let them know that you're sick because of the job?
Yes.
Okay.
They definitely
so they knew that
it was because of the job. Yeah. And so when I told them, they were all like, leave. If this is making you not healthy, yes, you need to.
So how old were they at the time?
My youngest, so in 2015, or 2016, she had just turned 16. My son suffered a lot. He's younger, and that year he really picked up on the anxiety. Like, my other girls didn't pick up on any anxieties or anything, but my son did, and he went from being like a normal, you know, whatever he was at that time, 8-9-year-old kid, to being completely full of anxiety. Like, we would have mental breakdowns inside, like at the school parking lot, because he wouldn't want to go to school for like no reason. Just he was all of a sudden afraid to go to school, and we'd be in the parking lot, and he'd be like freaking out, not wanting to go in, and then I'd start freaking out because he's freaking out, and I need him to go to school. Like, it was a disaster. So he's finally like at a point where his anxieties are a lot better, but he definitely suffered the most.
So, how old were you? You mentioned your son, and was it your oldest that was 16?
My youngest
Your
daughter
youngest?
was 16.
And then how the other two?
So then she was 16, 18, and 21.
Did the 18 and 21-year-old see what the 16 and 10-year-old saw?
The 18-year-old was still home, so she did. The 21-year-old was in the military, so she left a few months before I got sick.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so after you tell them, the decision is made to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you call it, and, you know, I don't know what day it was, but let's say it was a Friday. You called it, and you're done. Now you're no longer a cop. At what point do you tell your mom and your dad and your brothers or sisters, if you got brothers and sisters?
So I never had a talk with my brothers or sisters. The only other people I actually spoke to were my parents, and so if you know me from this, my dad was a police officer forever,
Right.
And so I remember them coming to my house, and I didn't tell them. My husband had to tell them for me, so he told them the whole story.
Where were you at?
Right here.
Right next to him?
Right next to him.
Did they come over for that specific reason?
I don't know. Probably not. They
No?
probably just came to visit, and I think it was like I was already doing it, or I had already quit, and it was like, well, I can't like
Might as well
hide
tell
this.
them now.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
like,
Veronica hasn't worked in 5 weeks.
Exactly.
yeah, and so, you know, he's the one who told them what had happened with the doctor, with the psych doc, and where I was and what I was doing now.
Now, what if anything do you remember? Did they say, look, she's left because of PTSD?
I doubt it. I don't think those letters were used at all.
Not at all.
Mm-mm.
Just that you were done and
Yeah,
that was it. Now, I know your background. I know the viewers that watch, but if you're new, you pretty much bleed blue.
Yeah.
So, what did your dad say?
Well, from what I can remember, so when it happened, right, like I was probably at my worst when I quit. I think he probably, like with everything, I worried more about it than I needed to. Like, I think he was really supportive of me and understood.
At that point, you just became daughter, not police
Right.
officer daughter.
Yeah.
So, so you've already told them you're no longer a cop. How long goes by before you use the 4 letters for your family and your parents? When I don't mean that separately. I mean, first your girls and your boy, and then your mom and your dad.
To be honest, I don't know that I ever used it with them. I think
To this day?
yeah, I think my youngest daughter. So that summer when I told her I was quitting, she was going or putting in for a scholarship to go to Columbia University for before I don't know, 1 year between school, 1 summer between years, and so she had gotten an invitation to go to Columbia University, and was going to go, and then found out that they had a scholarship program because it was like $12,000 or something to go for 3 weeks. And so they required like an essay to do it. And so when she found out, after I talked to her, she actually wrote a big old essay about it and how it affected us and the family and stuff. And
You still have the essay?
I don't even know if I ever actually read it.
Oh,
Like,
shit.
I was
Like,
going to say
That's some
that
shit we
probably
need
be
to
a,
see.
I know,
We
she
need to
wrote-
have
I
you
know.
read that
that
shit.
would be
I
a
need to
read
find
right
it.
Yeah.
there.
For sure. And I bet we could probably get it from like Columbia or something.
Yeah.
But she wrote this essay about it, and they granted her the scholarship based on it.
Wow.
So what if they didn't have the 4 letters? What did she say?
And she may have. Oh, so that's what I was getting at. So she's super smart. She's just that kid.
She
right?
probably knew.
She knew exactly. So she changed. Initially, she wanted to go into psychology, but more social work. And then after that, she kind of changed some of her majors, and because now she wants to be able to help people like mom.
Yeah.
And
She's like,
stuff.
I gotta help mom.
Yeah.
She's like,
She's a
"Mom's
fucking
crazy."
train wreck. She drinks all day and cries
She's
all
like-
night.
She's like, I think mom's fucked up.
Yeah, exactly.
Does
That's
anyone know
exactly
that?
what she is.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Oh,
to this
shit.
day,
I don't use those words.
you
at
don't
all.
use those letters?
Oh, yeah.
Even though you put that shit on your Facebook all the time. Like,
Yeah,
has your
so I
dad said
guess-
anything to you about that shit? Not a
Never.
fucking word, huh?
No.
That's so fucking weird.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not, it's just acknowledged almost.
Yeah, and like everybody knows, like so we had a situation with family and a sibling of mine who also suffers from PTSD, and he was a police officer for many years too, and he medically retired, but because of an actual injury, he was hit by a car, and so he has some problems, and we were having this family talk one day because of some stuff going on with him, and I remember during that, like, my dad was being like, probably most dads are with their boys, right? Like, harder on him than I thought he should be, right? Like, just he wasn't there, but we were talking about him, and I remember, my other brother was there, and one of my nephews was there. My brother's son was there, and we were having this talk about my brother's behaviors and stuff, and what to do basically. And I remember then saying, like, to my dad, like, Dad, you understand, like, this is not okay. Like, he's going through something. Like, you know who I am, you know how I was, and you know what it did to me. Like, and I remember, like, my other brother being, like, so confused. Like, what is happening? I don't even know what she's talking about.
Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck is going on?
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
What's wrong with sister?
What did I miss?
Yeah.
Exactly. And so, that was like probably the only time I've ever said anything out loud in that setting with my siblings or my dad or anything.
So so how many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have 2 brothers and a sister.
Did you ever talk to them about having PTSD?
No.
Never.
Mm-mm.
Is there any reason why?
It's probably just the shame of it, right? It's not glamorous. It's not like, hey, I have this awesome
Yeah,
thing.
you
to
put that
share.
shit away, right?
Yeah.
Well,
so-
yeah, and look, your brothers and sisters are in law enforcement. One's a dispatcher, right?
Yeah, my sister's
Right.
a police dispatcher. She's been forever. She was married to a police officer forever. Her son's a police officer.
Right.
And then my brother was a police officer. His wife used to be a police dispatcher as well. My other brother, he's a total tech nerd, so he works at Intel.
So, but none of that ever gets tossed around, like, over the dinner table. You're
Well,
like,
and
"Yeah."
that's what
No.
I think is even like crazier is because of that. I think that's why it wasn't talked about. Like if you think about it, like a big band of cops, the first thing that they're going to talk about is not going to
Not-
be their mental
right.
issues.
Right. I agree.
They're going to put up a guard and be like, everybody's good. We're all good.
Except that one over there.
but no, that's the truth. I mean, that's that probably is what it is. Because I mean, coming from my family is a blue family as well. My dad's a chief of police back home, and that type of thing, and I can totally relate with that.
But
I barely talked
will
about it
say that
either.
I feel like, so I'm the youngest of them, and they're all like 12 to 15 years older than me. But even at a young age, I was not like the most responsible, like they're irresponsible, nothing like that. But I was the one who took care of everybody.
Mhm.
Like if my parents needed something, I took care of them. If my
But you're not the
siblings-
oldest, right?
It just happened in reverse. Like I think maybe because I was the police officer, right? Like everybody came to me for everything. And then I will say though, since then, like I have noticed a shift in that. Like now my big sister, she's a big sister to me, you know, like she's always, just little random things, you know, but like always trying to be more giving towards me. And we're a very giving family, but
Right.
I just can tell like,
The attention is there more.
Yeah, definitely.
They just know that you're
Mhm.
fucked up.
Yeah, pretty much. In the most fucking stab-hearted
Right.
comment.
Thanks.
Leave little sister alone because she's fucking crazy. So
true.
do you think that the way that you did it is a good way to do it? If somebody's going through it right now, do you think you should not like address the elephant in the room?
No, and I mean, I think there's a way to do it for everybody's going to have their own way
Very
Right.
true.
that works for them. And I think the most important part is to have that support, whether it is your spouse or your parents or your family, or whether it is your blue family, the people going through it with you. Because for me, that's where my support comes from. You know, like I don't run home to my spouse. I don't run to my children. I keep it, and maybe it's that protective part of us, right? Like I still keep it from them and I share it with those like me now.
Right.
And so that's kind of, you know, having that support group is really helpful. So I think telling them, obviously, if you're just fucking everything up at home, like there has to be a talk at some point
Right.
to understand it so you don't
Yeah, like
lose
here's
everybody.
why.
Yeah.
Here's why mom drinks wine at 7 in the morning.
And here's the long list of why I'm so fucked up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think there's definitely a place and time for it. But I think it has to be on your time too, because if you're not
Yeah.
ready, you're already spinning 1,000 miles an hour. To add that pressure of having to have that talk, I think it's not going to be helpful.
Right.
You know?
All right. Well, I appreciate you breaking that down. Tony,
Yo.
I know you have ran like 1,000 miles away.
I'm like
Just to
fucking
not
Forrest
address
Gump.
ticket.
Yeah.
You're just running from the fucking dragon.
Shit, yeah.
So let's go from the previous incident. We know what your critical incident was.
Yes, sir.
When you decided to retire
Mm-hmm.
and walk away,
Mm-hmm.
was there a time, or has there been a time where you've actually sat down and told people, other than the podcast that came out a couple weeks ago, that you were fucked up?
Yes, actually. So I'm very, very. Let's see. I'm a big Italian family guy. So, we're very, very close. So the first person I actually told something was going on was my mom. But I'm pretty sure she just told everyone from there. So that's
You
just
got
how
that kind of
Italian
mom.
families
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
Yeah.
She,
Did you hear what
like,
happened to Tony?
I was like, Mom, I think I'm fucked up. And then I got a call like 2 seconds later from my aunt. Hey, Tony, you're fucked up. Like,
Yeah, that was awesome.
yeah, I am. So, but no, in all seriousness, I think I kind of relate with Veronica because, like I said earlier, my dad is a cop and he's seen a lot of shit. That's for sure. He's told me multiple stories about the stuff that he's seen. So I know that he has been predisposed to what we all have.
Right.
I'm not going to diagnose him. I'm not going to say that he has anything like that, but I'm going to say that he knows exactly what we all have gone through.
Do you think, like, I feel like my dad is Superman. Like, nothing has ever, you would never know. If my dad was ever fucked up from all of his years of work, like, never would know. He just,
Don't you think your daughters thought the same thing about mom?
Well, I am Superman.
Yeah.
Well, no, and that's the
She's
thing. Yeah,
Wonder
yeah.
Woman.
100%.
God
like,
damn it.
Dad is fucking Superman, right? Like, my dad was my football coach. He was, everything to me. So, like, yeah, he's fucking Superman. But I know for a fact that he struggles with what we struggle with.
Right.
Just seeing sleep habits, just seeing stuff that I do now, it reflects, and the thing that I think was the hardest mountain to get over was telling him that I
That
I
was
had
the
it,
scariest thing for me.
Yeah.
Why? Because you felt like you were weaker than dad?
Well, because I was weaker than dad.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
no. Well, and I didn't want my dad's image of me to be tarnished. You know, as
Right.
like he was so
Right.
proud. He was
Yes.
so fucking proud when I said I'm gonna be a fireman. You know, I got hired at Ferguson. He's like, fuck yeah, that's that's the place to go. You know, blah blah
Yeah.
blah. Gonna be busy.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
that type of thing. You know, and once I like failed, you know, that's what I
Yeah,
felt
yep.
like. I was like,
Mhm.
well, Dad, here's this, you know,
Right.
I'm gonna spill my guts and throw up all over the place, you know, that type of thing. But it was he kind of like Veronica said, it was all in my head. He was the most accepting person there was. Like, I mean, it was amazing. And Dad, I love you for that. Thank you for doing that. But yeah, he was like, well, as long as you go back to school and do something with your
Right.
fucking life, I don't really give a shit,
Yeah.
you know.
Right.
And,
Exactly.
my mom's always going to be supportive. So, I think the weirdest thing was to see like how everyone else interacted.
So
with
before we
me.
get to everyone else, I have a
Yeah.
question for both of you.
Yeah.
Okay. If you have not asked, maybe you have, but I'll start with Veronica. Have you ever asked your mom about your dad?
No.
So you don't know if you were to ask your mom, hey, is dad a little bit fucking off his rocker? Like, is he crazy? Does he sleep weird? So if you ask the same question about, because you said dad's hero, right? He doesn't get fucked up. If you asked your mom that, what do you think the answer would be to that?
Well, I mean, I don't know if she would know specifically like about what PTSD does, you know, but you know, we all know like my dad, drinking is a thing in our family, gambling's a thing in our family, and my dad's been a chain smoker his whole life, you know, so probably some of those things were used to combat what he's going
Right.
through. And, you know, like my dad still hangs out with the living police officers that he worked with or he supervised, and
Right.
they're fucking train wrecks too, right?
Right.
Like I think one of his friends just passed away not too long ago, but he was like an alcoholic since I was little, so for probably
Right.
since he was a cop, you know.
So you mentioned dad, but you've never asked mom like,
Mm-mm.
hey, how's dad? Or
Well, my dad has a shit ton of health problems, right? And he's I think he's like 78 now. So he's got a lot and he always has. That's why he left the PD because at 20 years he got really sick. And so could it have been and it's autoimmune, right? So he's lupus.
right.
And so that probably was
A
you know,
factor.
right?
Yeah.
And so he's always sick and always on medication, and you know, so ask
Right.
you know, like who knows what the fucked upness comes from, right?
Right.
At this point.
So and so the same question to you, Tony.
So it's
If you were to talk to your mom, right? We know what dad thinks.
Mhm.
We know what you think of dad.
Yeah.
But what does mom think of dad?
Mom knows. She sees it 100%.
In dad.
Yeah,
Right.
100%. I mean, it's. I will say this now. Since my dad has become a grandfather, holy shit, 180. Like, throughout my childhood, he was there all the time, but you could tell he had other things on his mind.
Right.
And it was always going to be work, you know. As a let's see, from I think I was in 4th grade, but 10 years after that, he was a detective. So he was getting called all the time,
yeah.
you know, running into work all the time. Fuck, dude, you know, always so negative. But when you think about it, I mean, I would have been the fucking same way, you know.
Right.
And that was during the times where PTSD was nothing, you know, like that didn't fucking
Oh, no,
exist,
no, no,
you
no,
know?
no, that you didn't talk
and
about
if you
that shit.
said anything like, you know, you're fucked, you know.
Right.
So yeah, I can see, and she can see that as well. Now we actually, it's crazy. I went home after we did the podcast, and we actually talked about that. And she was like, "Yeah, it's amazing because he's a totally different person, and it's amazing because we are so much better now." And
Right.
and that's something that really kind of warmed my heart because going through high school and going through seeing how they experienced each other, it was like oil and water, you know.
Right.
But yeah, so it's improving. I will say that he is one of the lightest sleepers I know. He has kept all of his stuff at bay because he has a great routine, like we've talked about. He does exactly what I did. except I stood up and said, I'm fucked up. You know, he just didn't stand
Right.
up and say, I'm fucked up. He's got a great routine. He does the same fucking thing every day. That's how you keep your mental status at bay.
My dad's the same
Yeah.
way. Exactly.
And you know what's weird is if you fuck with my routine, I get fucking
You
crazy.
get so pissed.
Like, don't fuck with
Yeah.
my routine.
And
I had to work.
Same thing for him.
Yeah, I had to work on Saturday.
Yep.
So I had to work, right? And on Friday,
Oh,
I'm
wait,
like,
Saturday? You
yeah.
don't work on
I
Saturday.
do not work on Saturdays. And yeah, so like Friday night, I'm sitting there drinking. Surprisingly, I'm drinking, and I'm like, I was like, hey, I don't want to fucking go to work on Saturday. You don't fucking work on Saturdays, right? The best part was that I actually had to arrest somebody on Saturday morning, and she tried to run. This fucking crack whore tried to run from me. But I was all excited. She tried to run. She ran. I'm like, well, I will chase you down. Like, I don't work out, but I can sprint and catch you.
You're like,
Right?
You just did something
Yeah.
you did not want to do.
Oh, and she took off, and I
That's
grabbed her.
awesome.
Yeah, and it felt so good. But, you know, I paid for it at the end of the day, and I came home and I crashed.
Right.
Just like
My fucking mind was mush. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, you almost feel like post-ictal, like after
Yeah.
a seizure. You're just like,
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just like, okay, nobody should work that hard.
that like dump. You know?
So we know this moms think different, right? From dads, especially in that line of work. So I'll ask you the same question I asked Veronica. Mom, dad, no at this point. Brothers and sisters?
My brother, the only one I got. I'm pretty sure mom told him. Yeah. But he.
Mom told everybody.
Yeah,
that's-
mom told the fucking news.
Yeah. She put on Facebook. Tony's got PTSD.
As soon as I told her, bam, Tony's got PTSD on Facebook. No,
Yeah.
but no, my brother knew. And that was kind of, like I said, the weird thing is because my brother has not treated me any different whatsoever. Because I think he understands how fucked up I am. He's an artist, so
Right.
it makes sense. Our brains now mesh even better.
Right.
But my cousins and stuff like that, like you could feel a difference. Like it was almost like, oh, do we treat him normally? Do we treat him different? Like, what do we do? You know, now it's the same. You know, it's totally fine now, but it was definitely a change,
Right.
for sure.
So Veronica, you've told your family. What about your friends? The ones that maybe you don't talk to every a few months or whatever. They check in, they talk to you. What do you say to them?
I mean, I'm much better now, but back then, like I had a few close friends that knew something and I was talking to and really supportive. Because like I said, for me, just hiding made me feel better, I guess. You know, I didn't have to tell anyone, I didn't have to act it, I didn't have to hide it. I could just sit and be me. And I had a really, really super good friend who used to like call me out, because before I was like super social and we'd go out and whatever, and so she would like drag me out to lunches and dinners and happy hours and things and just anything to keep me involved in stuff. So she was really good about.
Was she PD?
Just
Okay.
a normal
Civilian, huh?
civilian
Yeah.
friend, yeah, super good friend of mine. And then other friends though, like I never really said anything to anybody. Like it wasn't, you know, I mean, like, you know, like even to this day when people say, oh, you're not with them or, you know, whatever, and I'll just say like, yeah, I got really sick there and I had to leave, you know, I'll say something like that. I still don't say like go into it, but for the most part people know because I have shared it over the
Right.
last couple years. So most of my friends know something, you know. I mean, they know at least my story. They've seen it a few times. I share, even if they're not liking, commenting, sharing, whatever.
Right.
Like,
They know.
They know, right? They see me posting about police suicide all the time, about PISTLE, about how it affected me, about, you know, what we're trying to do now. So they all know, but nobody really, I think it's still kind of like hush hush. Like people are like, don't want to be offensive
Right.
and say anything about it. to
What
me.
about coworkers?
so initially, while I was still working, my whole squad knew something was not right, you know, because I went from jovial and normal to just fucking hating everybody. Like, I'd walk into
Here
briefing.
comes the Tasmanian devil.
Yeah, like
It's
I
like,
would
oh,
walk
shit,
into
she's
briefing.
coming back.
Yeah.
And I was that dark cloud in briefing everywhere, right? I was confrontational on calls. I instead of being the like empathetic the one who could come and like mediate a call and calm things down, like I was trying, even unintentionally, just escalating
Yeah.
everything.
You're looking for a fucking
yeah.
I totally can relate with
Never
that.
happened.
fight. So,
But anyways, so they were all right. I was the only chick on day shift and whatever. So they were all very. I would say they all treated me like I was a flower, right? Very gentle around me. It's like if
And
they
that
did
makes
anything,
it worse, doesn't it?
Yeah, if they did anything, like my petals were gonna
Yeah.
fly off and I was just gonna die.
don't
or
hurt the
something.
princess.
Yeah, so
Yep.
they were very, very They never said anything to me
Right.
like, "Oh, V, we're gonna take care of you." I could just tell they were very, very protective.
Like Schmiegel.
Mhm.
My precious.
and and there was like, and some of them were even like, I remember being on calls and some of the guys I started with, there was a call where this lady, I was calling DCS to have her kids removed because she was just a piece of shit. And I obviously knew DCS, having worked investigations for a long time. And I just knew I wasn't letting her take these kids with her. And when I told her that, she told her kids, right, they were 4 and under, and she opened the door and she was like, "They're gonna take you guys away." And I was like,
motherfuckers.
right, and I wanted to just strangle this woman. And I remember like just getting in her face and saying anything and everything just to get her to do something, because I wanted to be able to have a response to it. And I remember my buddy standing we were in the parking lot, standing a few parking stalls away from me, just watching, like he knew I
Just
had to
making sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he knew I had to get something off my chest, right? Because he knew shit wasn't right with me, but he was going to make sure he wasn't going to let me like cross a line that I couldn't take back. So I just remember him being like, after a little bit, I could see my peripheral, and after a few minutes, he was like, "V, like, enough, like, you're done, like, you just need to leave her alone now." And I was like, all right, I guess, but
You're like, wooza.
right. But yeah, but that's
Goose
kind of how
fraba.
everyone was. They either pretended nothing was happening or
Just protected you.
hmm
Yeah.
And even still now, like even through it, there's been a few of them, and that same specific one on that call, like he would call and be like, "Oh my God, so and so is doing this and it's working for Envy. You should try this." You know, like just the sweetest things. So, you know, just things like that. where
Right,
people
looking out
still-
for you.
Mhm.
What about you, Tony? Coworkers, did they at all ever reach out to you?
Yeah, I mean, my partner did. And I will say a couple of the guys did here and there. But for the most part, it was pretty
Quiet.
barren,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But
So when you actually were done, retired, left, no phone calls? Like, hey, where you at?
No, nothing like that. I think they all knew. I kind of, because I was working light duty at that time too, because I had just gotten my shoulder done. And so I was in there, which makes your PTSD even worse, I might say.
Yes.
Going back to work 5 days a week, going back to the place that you got PTSD 5 days a week isn't probably a good idea
Mm-mm.
for everybody out there. So yeah, that was the one thing that I think everybody knew, because I was like, guys, I'm going through therapy. I'm pretty fucked up. And then at one point I stopped going to light duty because I hated it so much. I literally, it was just fucking my brain so hard that I just was like, you know what, I'm going home. And that's when I had my therapist send something in.
Mhm.
So they knew. Now, like friend wise and stuff that you had asked.
Yeah.
Now they know.
Now,
yeah.
after you do 2 podcasts.
Yeah. Now they all know. But I would say a majority of my close friends knew, but another majority of my close friends had no fucking idea.
Mhm.
I kind of just was like, hey, decided to move to Seattle and be a hippie.
Were you a hippie before?
Question mark. No.
Not at all?
Oh, fuck no. I
Really?
had my head shaved. I had a
pictures?
You
oh,
work
yeah.
like send me the picture so I can put it in the
Yeah, the
podcast.
before
I'll put it,
and
I'll
after.
put it right here.
Before
So
and
Right
after.
here.
So yeah, I was
For
I had my head shaved. I had a big lifted truck. I wore
Oh, he was
cowboy
a total
boots.
He was a
fireman.
firefighter.
Oh fuck yeah, I
Oh,
was.
yeah.
I spit dip every
Yeah.
now and again.
Did you have a fucking? You were a second responder. Did you have a big bushy mustache?
I did.
Oh my God!
You're damn right, Skippy. I
Jesus.
did.
These fucking second responders, I tell you, they're fucking. That's
you-
nuts.
You can call them all out and by name, like you're gonna have a mustache when you become a fireman.
Yeah.
Like, it just happens.
That's like
So-
one of the
See what it
memes
is.
I posted about the
I know.
mustache.
I saw that. So did you? I know I didn't call my friends, but did they call you and did you tell them what was going on?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't know that I called them and was like, "Hey guys, I have PTSD." It was more like, well, and at the time actually, that was when I was going through my first breakup of the engagement. So literally, at the time I was dealing with the PTSD, my relationship that I thought I was going to marry this girl ended. So you can figure that was a double fuck.
Right.
And so that left me without that person to go to. And so what I did was just lock my fucking self in my house.
Mhm.
And that's when my mom called me that one time and was like, "Hey, dude, where the fuck have you been? It's been 3 months since we heard from you."
You're like, it's only been 3 days, Mom.
Yeah, it's like,
Calm
no,
down."
Mom, trust me. I've been lost in a rabbit hole for 3 months, but I think it's been 3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's odd. So for me, I remember when I went through my critical incident, I came back, they got me to the house, and my wife's looking at me, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I just remember her going through the yellow pages, right? She's like, I'm going to find a doctor. I'm going to find a doctor. And I'm just trying to get back to work, right? And I'm failing miserably. And when the time comes, I did not tell a fucking soul that I needed to see a doctor, psychologist, psychiatrist, that I was on medication. I didn't tell a fucking soul.
Mm-hmm.
So much so that when I went back on light duty, people were like, what's wrong? I'm like, hurt my back.
Yeah.
Right?
Pulled a hammy.
Yeah. You know why? Because that's what cops do. Hey, duty belt, vest, hurt my
Yep.
back.
Mhm.
Right,
Poor-
I just got to sit there. Got to hurt my back. Right? So when I finally did, when I was...
You?
Did you get the pictures? You got to send those pictures, so we got to put those
Wow.
motherfuckers up there.
He's like a clean cut kid.
Yeah, we're gonna put those pictures.
What the fuck
We're
do
gonna
I
put
look
them
like
right
now?
there. You look like a hippie.
He's like straight up clean cut kid.
Let's see. Oh Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I'll stick with my look.
I'll tell you what. I like you the way you look now.
Thanks,
Mhm.
Manny. I appreciate
So,
that.
So I didn't tell anybody, right? And then I'm going through my process. It's not working. It's getting worse. Ultimately, I have to pull. I got to pop off that flare to go retire. No one knows I'm retiring. The only people that know that I'm retiring are me and my spouse. My boys don't know I'm retiring. My family doesn't know I'm retiring. They don't know anything. They don't even know I've been home. So.
So why was that for all of us? Like, why was that like?
There was a time I was gone for over 2 months, and I just told my kids I had a shit ton of time I had to burn. Like, I didn't even tell them. They were like,
See,
Mom,
that's-
why aren't you at work? Like, you haven't been at work in weeks. And
You
I'm
want to
like,
know why I didn't say anything? Because I thought I was going back.
Yeah, that's
Like,
true.
I'm like, oh, I got this. I'm going back.
I could tackle this.
Yeah, like even on my first review where they accept my retirement,
Mm-hmm.
and then I got to go see the doctors. I'm already in the process. And I remember sitting at the house one time, I was drinking some whiskey, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I'll make it back. I'll make it back. Like, I'll fix this, right? And then it comes in December. I retired December 19th. The night before I retired, I think, I think I could go back. I think I could go back. Like, I think I could go back. And I still was holding that. And I remember when I retired, my wife was with me. It was just me and my wife. the union president comes out, tells me I'm retired, and we drive home, and I'm thinking to myself, fuck am I going to do now?
What now?
You're like, what the
What now?
Yeah. And
Where do I
it
go?
never dawned on me to say anything to anyone. And I don't know, did we tell Adriel before I retired what was going on or after? I don't remember. Huh? They knew before that I was retiring. Like, yeah. So I have no time to me is fuck. I don't know.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I have no fucking
yeah.
idea what
same.
time is.
To this day, like they're like that happened Tuesday. I'm like, what Tuesday?
You're like, what?
Yeah, Tuesday 2003.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I have no fucking idea what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I'm still listening to Dre, so I
so
You mean we're not supposed to be?
yeah. So we, I do remember when I talk about the peeling of the onion. Clearly, our families know something's wrong with us
Right.
before we tell them.
Oh, for sure.
Oh,
Okay.
for sure.
And
Yeah,
what
we're
I tell,
not holding shit.
right.
Although I did think I was.
You were like, I got this.
I got this.
They don't know I'm
They
crying in the
don't
bathroom.
Although
Damn it.
they can hear you in the
I
bathroom.
Because I actually I would go to the bathroom that was like literally right down the hall from the living room. So it's not like I went upstairs to my.
Yeah. Yeah. So, they already know they're living our life. They come in, they see the anger, they see the depression, they see that. And I remember, and my wife will have to tell me, but I remember I had it was time for me to tell. I don't know when. I didn't tell my oldest. Did you tell him at some point? Like, yeah, so I don't know. I wasn't involved in that. Like when you said you weren't involved with your dad, like I wasn't involved in any of that conversation. But I do remember that I called Dave and I said, hey, when and how exactly do I tell my youngest, who was 8 at the time, what's wrong with me, right? And like I'm grasping for anybody that's been down the road. Dave was the only one I knew, and that had kids. And he's like, look, you got to sit him down. You got to tell him. So, here's me. This is me. I'm like, I got this. I'm going to sit him down. I'm dad. Like, I'm going to sit him down, and I'm going to tell him this is what happened. Man, that shit went out the window. Like, I said, hey, come out. I want to talk to you. He comes around the corner. I'm like, I'm going to go to the room now. I'm going to go to the room. I'm going to go to the room.
You're like tail between your legs.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Like I was saying. So,
Hey,
what
guys.
I always say, we told my son. Well, we was my wife, right? And I'm like, I'm going to go to the room. You got this? You got this? We're good. So I go to my bedroom. I put my headphones on, and I am fucking bawling, dude. Because I know what my wife's telling my youngest, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I don't know, but I'm thinking what Veronica's saying, right? My son is looking at my dad like my dad's my hero. Now he's a mess.
He's in the bed right
Yeah,
now.
I don't know what the fuck's going on, right? So that was the second layer because my wife knew the first one. That was the first layer. The second layer was my kids. I had no part in telling them whatsoever, none. I don't know.
I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah, I don't know that Dave sat down and told his kids, which I don't know how the fuck he did that. I had to lean on my wife to sit them down, and then so I go to the room, and my then 8-year-old son comes in. He lays down. He hugs me. I'm fucking crying.
Aw.
Right? He's crying.
Aw.
Right? I'm like, I don't know what your mom told you, but she's lying.
You're like, I'm fucking fine.
I'm good.
I'm just, this is allergies,
Yeah.
motherfucker. What are you crying for?
Yeah. So my son tells me, we'll help or whatever.
Aw.
And ultimately what ends up happening is I talk to my wife afterwards and I'm like, what happened? What happened over there? And she's like, oh, he knew exactly what PTSD was. And I was like, oh, how the fuck did he know that shit? I just learned about it myself a couple weeks ago, right? And so she says, yeah, apparently they talked about PTSD on a show that he watches called Dog with a Blog, right? So here's this fucking 8-year-old who already knows what PTSD is, and his dad, who's fucking a mess in the back, is trying to figure out what's going on. And he's totally good with it.
That's crazy.
Right?
My kid said something about you one day because
Me?
he gets the updates from, he's on my YouTube account, right? So whenever there's a PISTLE podcast update, he sees it. And one day I was like, damn, Manny, he forgot to tell me. And he goes, Mom, Manny has PTSD. Of course he's going to forget.
You should subscribe and hit the bell. You know when I put it on.
I know. I was like, oh. And so he, like, I've never used the term to him that I have PTSD. He just knows that, I'm not right because of whatever happened at work. But
those little fuckers are smart.
When
They
he
are.
said that, I
Yeah.
was like, what in the hell? He's
Yeah.
like, Mom, you know Manny's not going to remember he's PTSD.
He's a fucking idiot.
And probably, because so that's the biggest thing he notices with me is my memory is really shitty.
Oh, yeah.
And so he's always like, Mom, you have to do something to try to remember more. And so when he said that, I was like, oh, well, this fucker know that I have PTSD because he's calling Manny out on it, And I was like, what is it that you know about this? I was trying to be all inconspicuous, but without,
You're like,
giving up.
what exactly is wrong with me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Manny's stupid. Mom's not stupid.
So I
You're
was
like, it's an
okay.
IQ thing. Trust
Yeah.
me, it's not a.
Women are smarter than
It's
men.
not that
Just
we
get
have
over
the
it.
same thing.
Yeah. And so I come out, I'm fucking a mess. And I talk to my wife, and she's like, yeah, he says that he knows exactly what it is because of Dog with a Blog. And I'm like, how the fuck can he know that shit?
Who's the dog with
Yeah.
the blog?
And he knew exactly what it was.
That's awesome,
He
though.
didn't even judge.
Wow.
I don't know. That was the first layer, right? So clearly my wife knew what was going on. Then my kids, my boys. And then, then the last layer, which is family and friends. And, well, if you don't know, my mom is Marie Barone from Everybody Loves Raymond, right? That's my mom. Hispanic version, okay? So I didn't say anything to my mom or dad, right? I don't know. I asked my wife before we left. I said, "When'd you tell him?" Right? Or what'd you tell him? And I don't know. I don't remember having a conversation. I do remember sitting down with them and saying that I had a bad call, right? Is that what it was? I had a bad call, and I was going to retire because of the bad call. And was that? You didn't go over the call? Yeah, I didn't tell them about the call. I didn't say anything about that. I just said, look, I won too many bad calls. This bad call got me, and they're going to retire me. And my dad. So my dad's dad. So my grandfather was in World War II, and I remember him, and he had severe PTSD,
Like crawling under the bed
my God.
type thing.
Yeah, it's like
That's so
severe
sad.
PTSD. So I think my dad was a little bit more emotional because
he
of
did.
his dad.
He didn't want his son to go through
Right. And my grandfather, I can still remember seeing my grandfather. He was a fucking train wreck, man. Like, that guy smoked cigarettes upon cigarettes,
that.
right? He'd burn one. It was ending. He'd light another one, burn the next one, right? And so, like, I remember that. I didn't tell them. I don't know why I didn't tell them. Mainly because I didn't want my mom to meddle, right? Your mom says, she's going to tell everybody, there's 3 ways to talk: telegram, telephone, tell your mom.
Tell your mom.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's my mom. Because I had to go in there and say, look, this is what's going on. Don't say a fucking word to anyone.
That doesn't
Right?
work.
And this is what she says. I'm just going to tell your tia.
Yeah,
Okay?
exactly.
Your tia needs to know because she's your tia. Right? And I'm like, what are you saying? Well, it's your tia and she needs to know what's going on. And I'm like, oh my God. Don't say a fucking word, okay?
So true.
And that's how she says it.
My mom has 4 tias.
Yes. Oh, we have more than 4, right? Because in Mexican families, everyone's a tia,
Yeah, it's
right?
so true.
Yeah. So everybody gets a copy. Hey, did you know that he had PTSD? Right? And I'm like, shut up. right? And I didn't tell them. Fortunately for me, I exclusively have a very exclusive group of friends that I've kept since high school. And I actually did the opposite of you guys. Like, I called them up and I said, look, we need to have coffee. And I met with one of my compadres, and I met with him and I said, look, here's the deal. I'm retiring. Here's why. Because I'm the godfather to his son, and I don't want him to be like, this fucking nutcase is going to be...
near my kid.
Yeah.
Go away.
So I sat him down. He said, hey, if you need anything, let me know. Anything. I didn't tell my parents what the call was. And that was probably to my own detriment because, if Veronica knows this because she's Hispanic and Italian is similar to Hispanic, right? So we would go to my mom's house, right? And my mom... she thinks, he's got a coco, right? He's got a head, right? He's broken, right? So everything was attributed to my PTSD.
Oh, it's just your PTSD.
Yeah. Everything was attributed to my PTSD, right?
So true.
So if I'm sitting there and I'm like, I got a headache, my mom's like, mijo, you need to, here, have an aspirin. I'm like, get her the fuck away from me right now, right? Because I'm going to fucking lose my shit, right? And my mom is a trigger to me, okay? And my dad has supported me from as long as I can remember. And whatever I did, I played baseball. I did very well in baseball. He coached me in baseball. I did very well. And when I became a police officer, he thought it was the greatest thing. Detective it was the greatest thing. I retired because of PTSD, start Pistol, and now it's the greatest thing. My dad wears the Pistol shirt to fries.
I love
right?
I do too.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Like he just fucking he don't know what it means, right? Before my critical incident, we went through SWAT school. We were a tactical gang unit, right? So I said, Dad, I got you a SWAT shirt, right? My dad doesn't know what that means, right? And so one day I show up to my mom and dad's, and he's wearing the SWAT shirt. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I just got back from fries. I'm like, you can't wear the fucking SWAT shirt to fries? You
like,
fucking
that's
weirdo?
That's an actual uniform.
Yeah. So
Oh,
I
shit.
think for us in both police and fire, they're proud of us.
Mhm.
And
Oh yeah, for sure.
yeah, and that I don't. It's weird. I don't know about you guys, but just as proud as my family was that I had become a police officer and become a detective, they were just as proud that I got PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
That was the fucking weirdest thing.
It was.
Like, they're proud. They're like, my son has PTSD. Do you know that he has PTSD?
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it's like he's living with PTSD.
Yeah. And they're proud of it.
It's like, you're damn right I am.
Yeah. Yeah. And then my dad sends me shit. He's on social media. He's like, nobody knows what you went through until you walked through their feet.
I know
And I'm
he
like,
does.
what the
I see that.
fuck, Dad?
I thought it was you at
No.
first, and I was like, oh, when you told me, I was like, oh, damn,
Yeah.
my dad.
Yeah. My dad, like, just as proud. Like, we would go into stores or we'd go to parties, family functions, and he's like, yeah, my son's a detective. He's a detective.
Yeah.
Right? He works narcotics, gangs. He catches all around bad
Strictly
guys.
gangs.
Right. He's a badass motherfucker. Right? Well, now that changed to, my son has PTSD. He's a badass motherfucker. I'm like, Dad, what are you talking about? Like, nothing cool about that shit. He tells everybody. He doesn't give a fuck.
It's so true.
And I'm like, wow, that's weird. My boys do the same thing. Right? My youngest, I tell him, I got to go talk to an officer. He's good with it. Right? I tell him, hey, I got to go talk to, we're going to do a podcast. Good with it. My oldest, man, that motherfucker will find me people to listen to us, celebrities, because he's in the music industry. He's like, Dad, I got you connected with so-and-so over here. They want to talk to you about Pistol. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, they want to talk to you about Pistol. Cool shit. Right? So the shame that I had beforehand of embarrassment and stuff, my family has actually embraced that, and they've turned it into
A positive thing.
Right? Now, to me, I don't like it. Right? Because now I see my dad. My dad will send me shit all the time. Like one day, this is somebody who's in their late 60s, early 70s, right? He sends me a message, right? He's like, Phoenix police officer just got shot involved in a shooting. And then he puts the fucking balloons that you put it. You know how you add balloons?
Yes.
My dad doesn't know what the fuck that means. I was like, Dad, it's not a celebration.
Those are not funeral balloons,
Yeah.
sir.
You just put him. I was like, what are you doing?
More along the lines of a happy birthday.
Yeah. But he's trying. He's like totally supporting me.
But the support is there.
Yeah,
That's
it's
that's
there.
100%
Yeah.
support.
That's the kind of shit that makes you laugh.
I love it.
Right? And that's why, for me, when Veronica and we're talking about getting this together, if I know people follow us on Facebook, I know that they're cops, I know that they're struggling, they're hiding in the shadows, reach out to us,
For sure. Yeah.
right?
Why not?
Firefighters, reach out to us. Because you're probably questioning, when do you say these things to your family? It's not that bad. They're very forgiving.
It's worse in your head.
It
We'll put
is.
that way. I made a mile long track out of a 2-foot
Right.
pebbled trail.
Well, you know what's funny is you dumbass, right? We're in group for the fire guys, and this motherfucker is stressing. He's like, I gotta go back to Ferguson. I don't want to go back to Ferguson. Fuck these motherfuckers. I'm going for 24 hours, and I'm fucking out, right?
But
I was so
yeah,
stressed.
I
Yeah.
know.
I was
that's
so
how
stressed.
I was even just
Well,
being around.
well, but
Gilbert.
here's
Like,
the
I would
thing.
be like, nope, I don't want to fucking drive anywhere near the town. Like if I see anyone in a cop car, like I'm done. Like I can't be anywhere near.
And
Right.
I will say though, like I'm pretty much a pussy about this though, because like the only time I was close to Ferguson was when I flew in on the plane. Like my mom picked me up and we went straight the fuck out to East Jesus. You know, like it wasn't even close to Ferguson. So like, I guess my anxieties were. Yeah, it wasn't. There was no reason.
And it was
for
great
them
because he
whatsoever,
comes
'cause
back.
I was stressing
Yeah,
hard.
he was stressing before he left. Then he comes back. He looks at me. And he goes, I should have stayed longer.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's what when my kid, I mentioned he was going through anxiety really bad, and I found him this book, and I don't know what it's called, but it's about this tomato plant, and you're basically with your worries making it grow.
Yeah.
And I mean, no different, because I noticed the same thing. Once
So
I start
true.
working, it just gets bigger and bigger
Yep.
and bigger.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nuts. Like, cause I remember like my hands are sweating right now just thinking about how
about it.
anxious I was at the meeting.
Yeah.
And then I come home and I'm like, oh, I should have stayed longer. They all look at me like, you motherfucker. Like, we knew you were gonna say that.
He had nothing. We were in the fire group, and he had nothing but positive things to say.
Yeah.
I was waiting for him to say.
Because it's in our head.
Yeah,
it's
it is.
It's so overwhelming
is.
in
Yeah.
our head.
He's like, I was waiting for him to come. He's like, I landed in Ferguson. Those motherfuckers wanted to kill me. No, he's like, saw my mom. They got a new house. I was like, holy shit, it's all good shit, right?
It was, yeah.
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 And it was us. It was us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, your brain can really fuck you up.
Yeah.
yeah.
Especially when you're going through this.
Yeah.
So, as always, I appreciate you guys showing up. Mark,
That Mark.
fuck that motherfucker skimming out on us. But as always,
We should call him Shit Mark.
yeah, to us and those like us, you guys, I appreciate you coming out on this Sunday. Veronica, I really appreciate you coming out because it's a Cardinals game Sunday, but it was an 11 o'clock day.
10. It was a 10 o'clock day.
Good old.
It was a good game, even though we didn't.
Took a good old L.
Yeah. Sorry we lost.
I'm loyal, though.
That's okay.
Cliff's still hot.
Yeah. He's still employed. We'll put it
Yes.
that way.
So I appreciate you coming out. As always, you guys are the greatest, and we'll see you on the next one.